Hi everyone. With Grinding Gear Games releasing quite a lot of information about their Dawn of the Hunt update that's scheduled for Friday of this week, I thought it would be a good idea to have a bit of a deeper look into the Lich class. I'm actually sharing the Ascendancy information that is released by Grinding Gear Games on my screen. This was part of their press kit for Dawn of the Hunt, so it's available for everyone. If the Ascendancies stay exactly the way they are, I would probably start with the Necromantic Conduit. Necromantic Conduit basically allows you, your character and your allies to have Unholy Might. And as you can see at the bottom right, Unholy Might is basically a buff that adds 30% of chaos damage on all damage that you do. So it's really a damage amplifier, so to speak. And obviously chaos damage being one of the more difficult to block damage types in the game is obviously a really good uptick. The other thing I assumed is that when you go for these nodes, the three minor nodes are all the same. So I am assuming that the energy shield minor node, which basically is a 20% increase maximum energy shield, is going to be the same across all three swim lanes. So that's obviously a good bonus to get with your Necromantic Conduit. I think the other thing we immediately see with this Ascendancy tree is that there's going to be a strong focus on mana. We will see a bit more about that when we go through the other Ascendancy skills. The next one after Necromantic Conduit is Rupture the Soul. And that's a bit of a weird one because it's not immediately tied to the previous one with the Unholy Might. So Rupture the Soul is a fairly straightforward passive skill. It basically results in if you or one of your minions kill a monster which has a curse on it, there's a 1 in 3 chance that monster will explode, causing an explosion with a damage of 25% of the monster's total health. The damage that is dealt is in chaos damage. This is a good starter passive because it will allow you to do additional damage with exploding corpses. So what's the third one? The third one is Blackened Heart. And this is where it becomes interesting because Blackened Heart is tied to Necromantic Conduit because it will basically allow you to increase the damage output that you do with Unholy Might. Unholy Might is a buff that grants 30% additional chaos damage on top of any damage you do. So Blackened Heart allows you a 4% increased magnitude of the Unholy Might buff per 100 mana. So let's say you have 1000 mana, you basically get 40% increased magnitude of Unholy Might, which is obviously significant. Therefore, increasing your mana pool is clearly a goal and an objective with the Lich Ascendancies. As the fourth one, I would select Crystalline Phylactery. Crystalline Phylactery basically allows you to socket a non-unique jewel. The modifiers on the jewel will be increased 100%, so they basically count double. There's a small downside to it. It will basically also result in 50% more mana cost if you have no energy shield. There's obviously ways to make sure that you have an energy shield or that you will nearly never run out of an energy shield. If the Lich Ascendancy stays as it was provided by Grinding Gear Games, this is probably the starting approach of my Ascendancies. Let's have another quick look at the total overview of Lich passive skills. So when we take a deeper look, there's a couple of things that look out of the ordinary and are potentially wrong in this view and might be different in the actual game on Friday. The first one I want to highlight is Necromantic Conduit and Blackened Heart. These two are clearly linked to each other. They're both about the Unholy Might buff. However, as you can see, they're on different branches. And what you typically see in Path of Exile 2 Ascendancies is that they should be on the same branch. Blackened Heart should be the second passive skill right after Necromantic Conduit. The other one that I want to highlight is Rupture the Soul and Dominion over Flesh. These two Ascendancy skills have a focus on curses. Again, as you can see, these Ascendancy skills are on different branches. So you would expect that after you select Rupture the Soul, the next option that you can select would be Dominion over Flesh. When you look at the minor skills, this actually reinforces what I just stated. So when we look at the Mana Minor Ascendancy skill here on the left side, that obviously makes the most sense if it's connected to Necromantic Conduit and Blackened Heart because there is an association with mana. You need to have as much mana as possible to get the best out of your Blackened Heart Ascendancy skill. However, it's currently somewhere in between Necromantic Conduit and Dominion over Flesh. And Dominion over Flesh will not benefit from a 3% increase of maximum mana. and Blackened Heart will. Same goes for the Curse area. Curse area is obviously more interesting for Rupture the Soul and Dominion over Flesh. So my expectation is that Dominion over Flesh and Blackened Heart will flip around. So Blackened Heart will basically be on the left branch and Dominion over Flesh will be on the right branch. That's my expectation. That would basically correct the Curse area and the linkage with Rupture the Soul. And the same applies for Blackened Heart and the connection with Necromantic Conduit and the Mana Minor Ascendancy skill. If Dominion over Flesh and Blackened Heart are actually switched, I will likely take a different approach with my Ascendancy build. Let's have a look at it. I would still stick with the Necromantic Conduit and the Blackened Heart, obviously benefiting from the Unholy Might buff. But instead of focusing on Rupture the Soul and Crystalline Phylactery, I would actually go to the right side of the Ascendancy tree. Let's look at the major Ascendancy skills first. On the right side, we see Soulless Form and Eternal Life. So let's look at Soulless Form first. The first thing you notice is that Soulless Form will result in 10% of the damage that you will take to bypass your energy shield and basically just hit you on your life immediately. There's also a fact that the normal mana regeneration is not the case anymore. You will basically generate 6% of your max life as mana. So as an example, if you have 1000 life, you would basically be generating mana at 60 mana per second. This obviously incentivizes to still focus on having a large life pool. The fourth Ascendancy skill, the Eternal Life, is where it becomes interesting, because this skill says that if you have an energy shield active, you actually cannot reduce life, which basically nullifies the 10% damage that bypasses your energy shield from Soulless Form. This is obviously a very powerful combination, because this basically means that you will be able to take less damage. There's currently also items in the game that increase that percentage of damage that bypasses the energy shield. We don't really know if there's additional items that have similar properties in the 0.2.0 release. But this is for sure a very, very strong combination of Ascendancy skills that should allow a Lich to be quite tanky. Having a quick look at the minor Ascendancy skills on the right side, I think they're fairly straightforward. We have the increased energy shield, however it's tied to power charges. The 3% max life is obviously useful and will also help you in your mana regeneration. This is probably my preferred Ascendancy build, but it's obviously dependent on the correction of Dominion over Flesh with Blackened Heart. So the big question is, what will I be playing on Friday? I've played the Witch since release and I've been greatly enjoying it, so I'll likely play a Witch again. However, I'm not 100% sure about the Ascendancy. I've obviously spent a significant amount of time playing the Infernalist, and I'm seriously interested to see what the Lich can do. However, there's a couple of things to take in account. The first one is that the Lich doesn't have Bite its Will. Bite its Will is obviously one of the Ascendancy skills for the Infernalist that allows the Infernalist to build up quite a significant spirit pool. So you need to take in account that when you're playing the Lich in the current state of the game, your spirit pool will be smaller, and therefore you will not be able to summon as many minions as you can with an Infernalist. Obviously, with the patch notes not being released yet, there might still be other ways to get a bigger spirit pool playing the Lich Ascendancy. This is obviously something we will need to figure out during the 0.2.0 release. The other thing I'm really interested in is the Bind Spectre. The Bind Spectre will allow you to summon killed enemies, which I think will open up such an enormous amount of options. The thing with the Bind Spectre is what we have seen in the reveal actually shows that it's gonna be pretty expensive. I actually took screenshots of the parts where they were summoning slain monsters, and you can see the spirit prices that are associated with the different monsters. The first thing we see is that summoning slain monsters is not a cheap deal. The cheapest we have seen are Skull Slingers and Spine Snatchers and Rebrettal at 40 spirit, which is obviously more expensive than any of the minions that we currently can summon through gems. But it goes up quite significantly, right? Gilded Cobras 50, Lost Man Zealot 70 spirit, Val X-Men 60 spirit, Chaotic Zealot 60 spirit, and then the Val Goliath 130 spirit. In order to summon a number of these, you obviously need a large spirit pool. Going back to my previous point that I made about the Infernalist and Bite its Will, I think the Infernalist is probably a better choice if you want to go Bind Spectre and summon slain enemies route. That's my view. Taking all this information in account and the fact that I would really like to try the Bind Spectre and the ability to summon slain monsters makes me go into the direction of playing another Infernalist. However, I will likely level another character quite quickly to try out the Lich Ascendancy. This is how I'm currently looking at the Dawn of the Hunt release. I'm really curious to hear what class and Ascendancy you're planning to play and what you're looking the most forward to. Please let me know in the comment section down below. As always, thank you for watching and see you in the next one.